My pen is my safety net.
Nice. Okay, so we are live. Welcome to my audience. So this is Vantage Point Conversation, something I've recently labeled because I was given some guidance to put some branding behind what I'm actually doing. So that was actually came from Elios, who I had a live with yesterday. So my guest today is Anja. I'm gonna go for it. Lordanić, is that
Close
wrong? Is
enough.
that okay?
Yeah, Lordanić. Yeah,
Oh, Lordanić. Okay, cool,
yeah.
good. So,
Nice.
Anja, my opening monologue is always the same, which I've been told is maybe not correct, as I just mentioned. But I don't introduce my guests because I think I would do a very bad job of it. And I just prefer that you introduce yourself, anything that you think is relevant, anything that you think the audience would benefit from knowing about you, anything in terms of context that you're happy to share. Take as long as you want, as little as you want, and then we dive into the conversation from there.
Yeah, thank you, Colin, for having me. Personally, I prefer brief introductions because we're going to dig into a lot of stuff today. So I'm going to keep it brief and relevant. So, because we can go in many different directions now. And I can say that I'm a mother of two, that I run my own business. But I think the most relevant part here is I've been a podcaster for 4 years and I've made every mistake in the book, which is what makes me competent to teach others what not to do and what to do, actually, how to do it as correctly as possible. So, yeah, that is my story in a nutshell, but we can dig into whatever you like.
Perfect. So it's really strange. So, I mean, for people that watch this regularly, they know that we have like conversations before just to make sure that we can have a conversation on a LinkedIn Live. And then it occurred to me that we had a conversation about 2 weeks ago. I don't know how much we actually still talked about podcasting. We talked about
Yeah.
so much other stuff. And I was like, and then I was just doing the research thinking, yeah, what we're going to talk about. And I was like, podcasting. I was like, oh yeah, I've got so many questions for you about podcasting. And I was like, we talked about none of that, I don't think, when we were speaking 2 weeks ago. I'm like, why did I not ask anything? Because we were talking about babies and because you just had a little baby and stuff like that. I think I got caught up in all of that. And it was an amazing conversation. But I was like, I didn't ask anything about podcasting or anything like that. But so the podcast that you've been running before, how did that start? How did you get into it? Just for some context.
Yeah, well, first, let me share a quick story about me being a co-host and from 2021 to 2023. So for 2 years, I was a co-host on someone else's podcast in Croatian. And I call that my productive procrastination period because that is when I asked him, my colleague, and I asked him about how to launch a podcast, what needed to be done, the technical side, and so on. And he invited me to be a co-host. So that was very spontaneous. And we went on to record, I think I counted around 70-ish episodes, which is a lot, and it gave me a lot of confidence and experience. But it was done in my first native language, which is Croatian. So then I finally decided to go for it and launch my own podcast. And I still tried to play it safe, decided to play it safe and record it in Croatian. And as you know, since you live in Europe as well, Croatian is a very small portion of Europe and the world. And there are not many people who understand Croatian or who speak it. So I wanted to expand my reach, as they say, and I wanted to kind of go all in with English. So after recording, producing, and publishing 15 episodes of my own podcast in Croatian, I decided to start recording in English. And that is when I decided to go with the interview format, similar to what we're doing now. And I enjoyed it so much. And I recently, a couple of weeks ago, sorry, when we talked to each other at our pre-call, I said to you that I wrapped it up at episode 100, which was 2 years in the making. And I think that is quite an achievement, if I do say so myself. And now I'm ready to launch another one, which is going to be all about podcasting. So that is very meta, but it makes sense for my brand now.
Yeah, there's so many questions to ask you about podcasting because it's strange. So I kind of fell into doing these LinkedIn lives, and basically I was doing a marketing course, and I was trying to start a business of being a consultant, helping leaders connect with their people. And the marketing course that I was on at the time suggested that to do LinkedIn lives, they said do one a week, go live with a guest or on your own and share some value, with the idea that at the end or during the middle, you could then sort of suggest, I've got this course or this product or service. If you want to know more or whatever, then you can just reach out to me. And it's about giving value, but being quite visible. Anyway, the product that I was trying to sell just didn't land. I don't know if it was the way that I was selling it, but at the time I had this, there was someone else on the course, and I think she was a bit nervous about being on video. And I said, well, I'll just interview you. I for some reason, I don't mind seeing myself on video. It's not the worst thing. I know a lot of people hate it. But yeah, we just did it, and we did it for half an hour. And it was strange because the interview wasn't really structured in any way, but the guest, she said, felt very comfortable, and she was nervous before, but I seemed to be able to make her feel quite comfortable. And so I was like, yeah, I just like doing it. So I fell into doing these lives. And through frustration, I basically gave up the idea of being this consultant and just said, I'm just going to have these conversations online, and I'm going to do 2 a week. And that was the commitment to myself, to nobody else. And then, strangely enough, everything fell into place from there. I started connecting with people on LinkedIn and just inviting people, because I was worried about rejection most of my life. But strangely enough, when I just said, do you want to have a conversation, people were willing to come and have this conversation. I was like, okay, and I was like, who am I to do this and have these conversations? And it was amazing. And it just, because I think for me, I dislike the selling part of things. I didn't want to sell anything, and that felt quite icky for me to sort of do that. But just, understanding and being curious, asking questions just seemed to flow quite easily for me. And then along the way, a lot of people have called this a podcast, and I'm like, is it a podcast? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if it's actually a question I want to ask you. Is there, for podcast, is there a determined format? Because you talked about audio a minute ago, and obviously this is on video, and I stream it to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. But is there an official term for podcasting? Is there a certain way of doing it?
Well, podcasts now podcasting can take on many different forms. It's a more of a loose term than it was before. But when someone mentions podcasting, to me, it's an audio medium, and which is published on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which is an audio format only. But there are so many podcasts now on YouTube or on LinkedIn. We are actually recording a conversation now, and nobody has to watch us have this conversation. They can listen in and do something else entirely, which is how most people listen to podcasts anyway, while they're at the gym, walking their dog, cooking, or doing something else. So podcast and audio medium. But for someone else, I see some friends asking me about podcasting in such a way that, where can I find this on YouTube? What do I search for in YouTube? And I'm like, I'm not on YouTube at all. So yeah, it probably depends. If you ask 10 people, you'll probably get 10 answers.
Yeah, it's strange because I only put these onto YouTube because I thought I was having one conversation, and I use this StreamYard platform to do this. It was recommended to me, so I did it. And then I thought, well, I'm going to do this for a year. I'd committed to myself to do it for a year, and I thought, right, I'm going to pay for the I think it was like the medium package or whatever, streams to 3 locations. I had a YouTube channel, but I created one dedicated for it. But I knew my LinkedIn was always my primary goal for it to go to. And I thought, well, yeah, just one conversation, you can actually stream it to different places. And I'm so new to all of this, and I realized that different platforms have different reaches, different uses, how people sort of engage with it. And so whilst I've seen that for me, LinkedIn was my primary goal, that's where all the advertising, etc., comes from. the problem often comes when people want to rewatch things, because you go on LinkedIn, it might be in a feed, your phone switches off, then you open up the app again and it's disappeared, and you've got almost no way of kind of tracing it back, and you've got to kind of dig to get it. And for YouTube, it's just like, well, I can send you a link, you can go and watch it, pause it, come back to it whenever you want. So it's strange. It's taken me a little while, it's almost sort of 6 months, to realize, there's value in different things. And people can go back and watch YouTube, they're all there, but I hadn't been sort of promoting that. So I think it's just one example of so much in podcasting, not to get overwhelmed with, but there are, like you said, different mediums, different places where you can get it, how you can get it, etc. So and I think for me, if I'd have thought about it too much, I wouldn't have done it. I think this is one of those things that in my life, when I get overwhelmed and I go, oh, I should have this, it's got to be perfect, etc. It's not going to be perfect. Just do it and figure it out. Yeah. And I've just kind of gone along with it. And so I've done, I think it's about nearly 30 of these so far. And I'm like, oh, I wish I'd have known that at the beginning or done that. But you go, but if you did know it, you probably wouldn't have even started. And I think that's, we can talk about it, because when I first started thinking about it, I know on your LinkedIn, you said that people think the market is saturated. And I kind of felt the same thing. So I think I lent into the LinkedIn lives because I thought that's another direction that people aren't actually going in. But I realized it's not that saturated. It's okay, and just get started and just figure it out as you go along. Is that your experience as well?
Exactly my experience. And this is why I said on purpose that I made every mistake in the book, which is actually not true, because those quote unquote mistakes allowed me to learn faster by taking action. And I just want to take a moment to comment on this like oversaturated market part, because whenever you start doing something, or when you pursue something, or when you buy a new car, that is when you start noticing the same car. And when you start doing LinkedIn lives, it probably seems as if everyone is doing them because you're paying attention to that, but you're still in the minority. And when I launched my podcast, whatever version of it, I was still in the minority. But I started exploring what others were doing. And then I realized, wow, there are so many podcasters out there. But compared to YouTube or, I don't know, LinkedIn or Facebook users, we were still in the minority. So I think it's all a matter of perception. And as I said, when you buy a new car, you start noticing the same car, like going around, wow, is everyone buying the same car this month? But that is actually just your perception and your vision of the world, right?
Yeah. And so when you first started, so your decision to do audio, it was based on what? You didn't want to be on video, or the equipment you had, so I know we talked about it just before going live. Some people have some nice studios, etc. What was the reason for audio for you?
It actually came very spontaneously. As I said, that co-host, that friend of mine, invited me to be on his podcast, and his podcast was audio only. And I remember coming to his office and recording, and we were chill. We were wearing whatever we like and a microphone, and we would get feedback on our episodes that we were laid back, that they liked our chemistry. And I highly doubt that those would be the comments if we were on video as well, because I would be the first one. I'm not saying when I record without video, but I am conscious of a couple of things that I don't care about when I'm recording audio. So I really like that laid back vibe, and it allowed me to be more of myself than if I were to introduce another aspect, or if I were to be recorded for national TV, because we were actually recorded by a production team from Croatian national TV. And I remember that entire morning, I felt conscious, like, Is this going to look okay? A lot of people are going to hear and see us. While the day before we recorded our podcast episode like business as usual, you know. So I think it comes through in your voice and your attitude. This is why I love audio so much.
Yeah, it's actually very strange. So I've talked about this before. So I always saw myself as maybe a bit of an ugly duckling in terms of when I was a kid, and I remember listening to my voice. I played. I think I might have even mentioned it to you in our conversation before. I played my voice back on a tape recorder when I was very young, and I sounded very squeaky like a mouse. So for the longest time, I had this insecurity of sounding like a baby or a very squeaky voice. And I wasn't very good looking as a kid, and I had all, you know, sort of spots and acne. And so I had a load of insecurities that kind of brought with me. And over, I don't know, the last 15 years, I've kind of just been comfortable with what I look like. And so because of all those insecurities have gone away, when it came to video, I wasn't actually as afraid as many other people are. And that I didn't see that as an edge, but I'm aware previously how I would always focus on the insecurities rather than what I was thinking, and you know, trying to just bring ideas and concepts together. I was distracted by what I looked, or maybe that I sounded terrible. And as soon as I've got rid of that, it's allowed me to be free and be more authentic. And yeah, I kind of show up as I am. I'm wearing the t-shirt,
Right.
but I can really understand that, you know, if you're not comfortable with video, you know, I think podcasting, putting yourself out on video, all of this is actually very good. And we talked about it before, because one of the reasons I think I'm doing so well is that I think people really want that human connection now. They want to see that it's a human, it's not AI, it's not faked, it's not anything like that. And that comes with its own challenges, as in this is unscripted. I don't really have a lot of questions. I have an idea of where we're going to talk about. But all of that, again, can be very overwhelming. And I really think there is benefit for people putting themselves out there on podcasts and video, etc., because I think that builds trust and builds connection. And I think I know you focus on solopreneurs, and you say it's a very good thing for people, and they should do podcasting. I think, like most things, when the world seems very overwhelming, it's just about doing the smallest step that you can towards it, rather than overwhelm yourself. Because if you go extreme and, you know, your heart is racing at like 100 miles an hour through an hour's long episode, you're going to feel pretty tired, unless that's your energy level anyway. But if you do it in a way, and like you described it, when you turned up and you were chill and you were, you know, sort of wearing the clothes that you liked, and you didn't think of that, it becomes a much more fun exercise. So I can understand jumping into the world is a big deal, but try and make it as small as possible, and it's not such a big jump. Does that make sense, how I've
Yeah,
explained that?
you described it perfectly, and you're actually, I think, the exception, because you wanted to create the least friction possible, remove the friction, I should say, and you jumped into LinkedIn Lives, which is not what many people would do. So I actually commend you for that, because that is not something I would do. This is me getting out of my comfort zone, because I have recorded many interviews before, but I would edit them afterward, not necessarily polish them to perfection, because I don't want that, but I would from our conversation, like the past 20 minutes, I would probably edit out some of my parts, you know, something that the words I stumbled over and so on. But I just wanted to mention something briefly about insecurities and ask you something, because I think it is so interesting to see when we start talking about our own insecurities, other people don't even notice them. You realize that later once you address them. You keep talking about, I don't know, your appearance. I keep talking about my accent, about me not being a native speaker and stumbling over my words. But people who are listening to us right now probably haven't even noticed any of that, because they came here for us, the advice, to be entertained, or just to learn something new. So I wanted to ask you how you got over that insecurity, because you said I got rid of that and then I was able to move on. But how did you get rid of it?
So that's quite a loaded question, because there's probably a hell of a lot in there. I think I've just become more comfortable with myself over time. I actually did therapy, not about being on video, and I realized that I was carrying insecurities that were no longer serving me. So I've done a lot of work in the background many years ago. So I'd say about 10 years ago. And I think we have these beliefs. So I'll give you a prime example. So not necessarily about myself. I'm not trying to deflect, but it's easier for me to give an example. I have come across many people, and you are actually you're a prime example for me. So you're going to say to me that you're maybe a bit insecure about being on video. I see it the other way. I go, wow, this is amazing. You know, English is not your mother tongue, but like amazing. So, you know, audio is absolutely perfect, but actually you come across so well. And whenever I've seen someone and they're insecure about being on video, there are certain people that are an absolute nervous wreck about being on video, and it's just honestly that if the world could open up and swallow them up, they would like to be that way. But in my experience, most of the time that I've come across people that have said that to me, they are really good on camera, really good. And you know what? At the end of it, I say to them and I look them in the eye and I say that they're really good. And it's like this. And basically, it shatters a belief that they had about themselves. And they're like, huh? And it's so shocking for them to go, what? And then they go, oh, maybe. And it starts to re-question that belief that a story someone told them, or they've seen themselves on camera or something like that. And it's enough to go, oh. And I've seen it multiple times, not just doing these LinkedIn Lives, but in other things, when I've said, look, you're amazing on camera. And they've gone, what? And then they've embraced it. And when they've embraced it, they're amazing. I'm like, I would absolutely listen to you. And I'm not lying. It's what I see. And it's just about that belief. And I think, so just to bring it back to me, I had all these insecurities. And then I think one of the biggest hurdles that I had, I wanted to start a business. So years ago, I tried to record myself on YouTube, and I did this video, and I played it back the other day. I found it. And this is going back 8 years. And I was recording it from my computer miles away. You couldn't really see my voice. It was in this flat. It was not this flat, but and the background was terrible. There was a radiator. It was really boring, plain sort of cream background, no nothing. And I was like, and at the time, I was under the perception that if I recorded this, put it out to YouTube, everyone was going to come flooding towards me. And they'll want what I was talking about. When how I was saying it, it was unstructured and just messy. You couldn't really see my face. There was no real engagement. It was just me. And but I did it, and I was like, okay. And it's great to go back and watch that. It might make you feel a little bit like, oh, that's not great. But the reality is you can see that how you progress over time. And now I just become comfortable in doing it. I actually really like it. It's a bit, I can't quite describe it. I quite like talking, and I quite like being on video. It's not like I know it sounds quite narcissistical, and I don't mean it that way. I'm just okay with it. And being okay is almost, the best thing, because you're not that self-conscious about it. I mean, I'll look at myself and see, oh, is everything okay? But I'm just okay, and then I just get on with stuff. And the nice thing about doing this, so I did a couple of recordings on LinkedIn, solo recordings. So when I was trying to raise my business's consultancy business before, I was recording myself just into the camera and trying to do maybe a minute of dialogue, and a bit like you were saying about like editing it down and stuff. And I would do, I don't know, sometimes even like 20 takes for like a 2-minute clip or something. And but then when I started doing lives, it tapped into something that I feel that I'm good at, is having conversations. and asking questions and being curious. So the focus then isn't necessarily about me. I'm happy to talk, I'm happy to share, absolutely, but I'm very curious in the other person. So my focus is elsewhere. Where that would fall down is if that was a group situation. I am terrible in group situations. So if you put a third person on here, I think I would really struggle, because what happens in my brain is I go, okay, I've got to ask Anja a question. I've got to ask this other
It
person.
needs
I've
to
got to
be
see.
fair.
Yeah. And I'm like, and so my that insecurity comes from somewhere else. So I think it's, again, just comes back to this idea, this concept of the format that suits you. And if you feel comfortable in that, you're going to lean into it more. If it's too wildly scary, and there's no excitement in it, I think, I don't know that you're going to, like you say, this friction, all these things to set up. If it's too tech heavy, if it, you've got to set up a studio, etc., a load of, things in the way, you're going to do it less. Because it's already maybe hard enough, and then you've got to think about all these things. So for me, it's just making it as simple and frictionless as possible. And I think starting that, knowing that it won't be perfect. And I want to say the word perfect because I would suggest that's where a lot of people also fall down. Is that your experience? Do people not start because they want it to be perfect in the beginning?
Yeah, and I think exactly as you said, you need to find your format and do it in a way that makes you feel good and a bit nerve-wracking, a bit exciting, because when I was a co-host, bringing it back to my example, just to show people what you can do if you're not ready to take the plunge yourself. So when I was a co-host, I was taken under someone else's wing. I wasn't the one, like the main character. We were like equals, but it was his show and he would do the editing, he would invite the guests and so on. So that was, he kind of alleviated the pressure off of me. And when I started recording for the first time on my podcast in English, this is actually a trick I did. I started recording interviews in English because I didn't want to be the star of the show in a language that is not mine. And then I progressed like step by step. And now I'm completely ready and comfortable to record solo episodes in English. And it is still not perfect, as you said. There will be no end points in this, but you need to be, I would say, bold and brave enough just to step a bit out of your comfort zone, at least with one foot. And then that way you will see the progress, especially when you look back 6 months or 12 months in the past. You will realize that you did a great thing, you took action, you were in motion, and you weren't thinking about how to make it perfect, because who knows what would happen, what would make this show of yours or my new podcast perfect. I don't even know unless I give it a go. So I think there is something very comforting about people not caring as much as you do. And we should all think about it in the best way possible. Like when you launch your show, no one but your parents or husband or partner cares as much as you do. So people will not come flocking over to your show, and that's a great thing. As much as we want to market it and attract great people, our clients, leads, and so on. I think we should take advantage of the fact that we're not celebrities. And that is how we can get rid of our insecurities one day at a time. It's a process.
I think that's actually I sort of, it's very reminiscent of how I actually started, because I think, like you say, we think that we're going to put something out there and everyone's going to flood there. The reality is no one was watching. And it's one of those double-edged swords, because you go, well, why am I bothering if no one's watching? But at the same time, it takes a hell of a lot of the pressure off, and you just go, yeah. And then I mean, I don't know how many people actually watch this. And again, I think that's one of the challenges with LinkedIn. I invite a lot of people, but it's maybe not the right timing, or they're just not on LinkedIn at the time. So that's why I think YouTube is also quite handy for people to watch on the replay. But the reality is, when I started this, the first couple of conversations, I was like, I forget that there's maybe other people. I know you, Elios, for joining in. But the focus for me is the other person, and it's a conversation that I'm happy to have and just go from there. And I kind of forget, and I know that's not necessarily ideal. I mean, Elios was telling me yesterday it's good to engage with your audience, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge for me, as I was explaining to him, is that I want to have as much engagement with the guest and like here with you and understand. And my brain kind of needs to stay on that track. And if I enter too many things in my mind, it sort of loses track, and I don't feel that I do as good a job as I could do. And that might again come with time and experience and just doing it, and you feel a bit more comfortable because things have become a bit easier. But I think you also have to trust in yourself as well. Just let go. And so I always explain this. I don't script this, and it's and I want to talk about editing because that's actually quite an interesting part for me, because I've actually been told that I should reduce this down. So some people misunderstand this as in this is a podcast and it's edited and it goes out. That's not it. You know, I click live and we go live.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happens, happens. There's no pause button. There's end, and that's it. And it's never really felt that scary for me because I have an idea. We have this conversation beforehand, and I know enough about you and have enough questions or ideas of where we're going to go without it being heavily scripted. But people have said to me, people's attention span is limited, and they've advised me to make the podcast like 20 minutes long. And whilst I agree and I understand the attention deficit that we all have, I have it. You know, I'm very much drawn to, YouTube shorts and just quick dopamine spikes. What I found in these conversations, why I originally said that I wanted them to be around 30 minutes. The reality is they are an hour 10. Some even have extended a bit longer, but I try and cut that off there and say, look, we'll do around 2. But sometimes the conversation weaves and you get to some sort of gold towards the end. Not that it's not all gold, but that's real life conversations. That's how it works. You don't just sit in front of someone and they just reveal everything or tell you something that's really good that people would really want to. It takes, we've got to go over here and understand stuff. And my goal was never to sort of make anyone sort of give away any, not secrets or anything that makes them feel vulnerable. But sometimes through natural conversation, it doesn't occur. It's not the first thing that you talk about. But I'm quite comfortable with the conversation being an hour 10. And that's kind of where if it goes on much longer than that, I start to get a bit like, oh, hang on a second. But in your experience, how long were your podcasts, the ones you did with the co-host and the ones you've done for yourself? Was there like a time limit? So if I said 10-minute podcast, that almost seems too short. So how do you see it?
There are, again, so many ways I could go about this because I agree with every standpoint and there are pros and cons to each. When I was a co-host, we would normally take around 45 to 50 minutes, and some of our I say solo episodes, but there were 2 of us. They would take longer than an hour depending on the topic and our banter, because it is different when you have 2 people. The chemistry is there. We sometimes would have a great day and record a 90-minute episode, and it was one of our favorites, so it is different. But when I would record solo episodes, they usually go about from 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. And I like that. And I have my own reasons for it. As I said, English is not my first language, and I tend to shorten my own kind of presentations and storytelling because I still need to work on it, I feel. And when it comes to storytelling, I kind of don't want to bother people, but I realize when it comes to others, I'm really drawn to their stories. So that is something I'm openly admitting that I need to work on. And when it comes to interviews, same as you, I think we went on from 45 minutes to 60 minutes. depending again on the guest, on the topic, how talkative someone is. So there is kind of a rule, I would say, when it comes to solo episodes. 20 minutes is more than enough, because you mentioned people's attention. And someone did a research on how long people can listen to one voice and stay concentrated. And it was like 15 to 20 minutes as a golden standard for solo episodes. And I'm putting air quotes here. And when it comes to interviews, of course, the dynamic is much different. And co-hosted shows, there are two people involved. So it is much more, I would say, fun and easier to follow. And when you mentioned perfection before, I just wanted to put something out there for everyone who is their setup perfect. This is something I shared with you before we went live, so I wanted to share it with your audience as well. So this week I sold both of my professional microphones, and a new one is on the way. So now I'm still not sure how the sound will come out, but the microphone, it's big. It's picking up now my voice from. It is my webcam's microphone, so that is probably a thing I wouldn't have said yes to a couple of years ago, but I decided to go for it anyway. I didn't want to message you saying that I don't have a professional mic at hand, because we can still have a great conversation and the audio can be good enough. And if you can hear me well enough, I think it is okay. So, and I'm a podcasting mentor, and I think audio quality is very important, but sometimes life gets in the way, like something will always go wrong. And if this is something that is wrong today, I will take it. I just wanted to put that out there as a tangent.
Yeah, no, I think it's because I've heard that before. Someone was saying about creating YouTube videos, and it was a course, and they said most people will forgive bad video, but they don't forgive bad audio. So
Yes.
I kind of remembered that. And the thing is with these lives, I'm never in a studio. This is my apartment, and it's always done via the internet. And sometimes the other person's camera or even my Wi-Fi is even dropped at the end. And before, it's really strange. When I was working in corporate, that would have really stressed me out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's because the world has changed. And I've often said this about COVID. A lot of people, obviously had to work from home, so they were having video conferences in their lounge, just like I'm doing now. So people seemed a lot more at grounds, things happening, and they're a lot more. Yeah, but that's just normal life. If you'd have rewound about 10 years ago, maybe they wouldn't have been so understanding. And I just kind of go with it. If it's just like, okay, yeah, if it doesn't work. And I think whenever I've done these lives and the video is not great, it would be easy to say, look, no, I'm not going to do it. But my preference is that if I can hear and have the conversation, even if the video is a bit, sort of pixely, I will still go ahead. And luckily, the audio seems to be the primary thing that stays, especially on StreamYard. And
Agreed.
And if I can have the conversation, I think it's good enough. If you can't, then that's a problem. But yeah, and I think if you have once, it's not the end of the world. It's it's not.
Yeah.
I think we place a lot of importance on things that aren't important. I've done that before, but in reality, most of the time it works out. On the odd occasion it doesn't. Make your apologies, explain what's going on, invite the audience in to understand what's going on. Okay, that's fine. In terms of your audio, like I said to you, is that like I wouldn't have actually known unless you told me that the microphone wasn't there.
That's why I asked, because I didn't want the experience to be ruined by me not having a professional microphone, which I, of course, an exception. And I asked you before we went live, like, do you hear me well? And if my message will come across well enough, that is okay with me. Because if we were to reschedule, I'm not sure when this would happen. Probably in a month, maybe in 2 months, who knows? And you need to put things out there and help someone else in the meantime with your imperfect setup.
Yeah, It's actually quite strange. On started these, I rarely commit to anyone signing up too far in advance. It's very strange because I don't know if I did it consciously, but because in the beginning I was not desperate for guests. It wasn't every minute of every day, but I had the free space to sort of say, okay, I've got a space this week. Could we do it this week? And then I realized that the further out you book it, the more chance that something's going to come up and that person's going to commit to something else. So I kind of work on like a 2-week schedule and just sort of say, there are the occasional, instances where people say, oh, can I do it at the end of the month because I'm free? But those people are generally know their calendar, and once they've committed, they're going to do it anyway. They'll change whatever other commitments come up because it's in their calendar. But so it's this strange concept. I'm working almost like on a 2-week sort of rolling basis, which can be a bit stressful at times because there was a couple of weeks ago. I was overly confident that I would have enough guests because what would happen is for the next week coming, I wouldn't have any guests. And then suddenly, magically through conversations, people said, yeah, I'd like to do a live. And then I was like, and it just always miraculously turned up. And then this week, I don't know how long ago, about 6 weeks ago, I was like, I haven't got any guests. No one's saying, like, I had guests like a couple of weeks after, but not for the next week. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And so I recorded 2 solo episodes, and that's hard work. Honestly, that's so much harder work for me to put it out there, and just talking and recording yourself. It's strange because I'm okay being on video, but it took a lot more energy for me because I know it really, really is. Yeah. And so I think now I've gone back to, okay, so you have to feed the machine. So so the way it works is I reach out to 20 new people every day on LinkedIn. Some respond, some don't. And through all of that, if people find that it's okay to have a connection with me, it's exactly how we met, right? And if they're aligned, they look at my profile. I think the nice thing about what I do is I don't buy or sell anything. I'm not there. And I think once people have gone through that filter, because people are very skeptical of people approaching them on LinkedIn, it's like,
that's what I told you. This is refreshing, like to have a real life conversation. Like no one is trying to sell me something. I'm refreshed.
which is strange because it was refreshed. You almost go, okay, I'm going to do what you asked me to do, and it's very strange. And I think that's actually made me much more productive because I'm not coming with an agenda. I just want to have a good conversation and learn something from you, or just have this exchange. And that allowed me just to reach out to many people, not feel rejected. And if they don't want to do it, that's okay. But I've had some amazing conversations with people all around the world, and just through asking. But in order to feed that, and to have, and again, I've committed only to myself to have 2 LinkedIn lives a week. No one's sitting there ticking off, has Colin been here twice a week? It's just me. It's just my commitment to myself. But unless you have that that scheduling, that time, that work behind the scenes that people don't see, then the actual lives themselves don't work. And I've taken everything else away. I try and connect with people, have that conversation, which starts online via LinkedIn. Then I invite people to have a conversation to see if they're comfortable enough to have a conversation for an hour on live. And then we go that way. But I think at some stage, I realized that can be very overwhelming. So I'm saying all of that because when people go into podcasting, I think they have very ambitious ideas that they're going to do so many episodes or podcasts, etc. And there's so much other stuff going on that they're also committing to. It does take time. It does take focus. And I think where I see a lot of people say they're doing podcasts, they did it for a short period and then they stopped. And I feel that's because of overcommitment or just so many other things. I think it's aspirationally good, but the reality is they're doing too many things. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, they underestimate the effort that needs to be put into the process. And as you said, you described this very like casually, but I know a lot of effort goes into play here because, as you said, people kind of are aspirational. They want to um, have these big dreams and goals, but we need to take it one step at a time. And as I said before, remove as much friction as possible. So if that includes, I don't know, doing interview style show, then that is, I think, a good idea because you're held accountable by your guests. You will rarely or never cancel on your guests. And if you have an issue with, I don't know, time management, then you can do lives entail something completely different. But as you know, you won't cancel on your guests ever or that easily unless someone extreme pops up. So know yourself, you know what they say, know thyself, and see what your schedule looks like, what your schedule allows for in the first place. That is what I say to my clients. We are working around you and your life and kind of trying to introduce podcasting into your life as seamlessly as possible so that you don't feel overwhelmed each time you need to record. So there are so many things you can do. You can record episodes with a co-host, so you're keeping each other accountable. You can do an interview show. You can do a solo show by recording 4 episodes at a time. You can batch record, and then you have a month's worth of episodes ready to go. If you feel self-conscious about going on video, you can record an audio-only podcast. And I know everyone is saying you need to be on YouTube, you need to record videos to create that know, like, and trust factor. All of that is true, but if that is holding you back from kind of taking any kind of action, then it is better to do audio only than not to do anything at all. And this is why I said to myself the same thing as you. I forgot to mention this. I want to record episodes each week for a year and see what happens. This is what you said to yourself. And I think a year is a great period to give yourself and to commit to it. And that's when what you said about people being overly ambitious. But when you make something a non-negotiable, like I will commit to this for a year and try to make it a part of my routine, then you will find a way to make it work. And all of us know our own schedules and habits best, and we know how to introduce this new project into our lives. If someone were to tell me you need to write a book in the next year, of course, no one is forcing you to, but this is just an example. I would find a way to incorporate writing into my routine with 2 kids. There is a time and a place for that. I would carve out and ditch something else, get rid of something else that is not serving me, which is probably, I don't know, social media or Great British Bake Off in the evening. I would sacrifice that and start writing, you know? So we all need to be realistic with ourselves and not to be overly ambitious. And I have another example because I'm in it right now. I'm living it right now. I'm launching a new podcast in January. And I really, really want to put out 2 episodes per week. But I'm not going to start with that because I don't want to overwhelm myself. And that is probably not realistic at the moment. So I would rather record 1 episode per week or publish 1 episode per week and try to batch record as much as possible. And if I notice that it is going well, I can afford to publish 2 episodes per week, then great. I will introduce that, I don't know, 3 or 4 months in. But we all need to be realistic with ourselves and decide what is a non-negotiable in our personal and business life. And I know it sounds simple, but I've lived through it enough to know that it is, you just need to be strict with yourself.
Yeah, I think we put excuses in the way oftentimes, and I think if we can look at our lives and sort of say, yeah, I don't have time for this. Just actually look what you're doing during the day. And your prime example of social media, I'm trying to avoid social media, but I'm I go and check my phone and you go, oh, that's 5-10 minutes gone. This is, and
Mm.
you have to be ruthless with yourself, but it is of benefit for you. And I think it's, if you
Well
want
said.
it,
Well said. Ruthless
yeah,
to yourself, but it's a benefit to yourself. Yeah.
yeah,
Nicely
but
put.
if you want it that much, then you have to make that a priority. And I think your example. There's probably a lot of people watching it that have kids. You have 2 kids, and one of them, Eva's, you said, is 3 years old, 3 months now, 3 4 months old?
She's turning 4 months old. Yeah,
4 months.
this
Okay.
week.
And so that's a lot to go on. But you're still saying, okay, I'm going to do this podcast. You're committing to do it, and you'll find the time. And you will find it if it's that important to you. You just have to carve that out, and something else has to go. What I found in my life before is I was always adding to it. And so if I wanted to do meditation and I was doing journaling or something like that, I just layer on, and you go, well, no, pick one for now. You can always swap those over later on. But we always seem to want to keep filling that glass, and it's always already quite full up. So take the stuff out that's probably not serving you or making you, like social media, like doom scrolling. It's not adding a lot to your life. But again, you got to be aware and disciplined enough to do it. Maybe ask your partner or whoever, can you see what's happening during the day, what I'm actually doing? Because sometimes reality, well, our perspective of reality and actually reality is sometimes quite different. I've seen that for myself. I wanted to get onto the point about editing. So I had this idea a while ago when I was thinking about YouTube videos, because actually shooting the video itself is quite okay, but the editing part, I saw myself, because you do see these editors and they sit down and they do that, and I've had editing software before, but the amount of time that editing takes is unbelievable. When I did a couple of videos and I edited them down, you've got to cut it, and for me, I think that perfectionist part played the bigger part in my life whenever I've come to edit something. So actually, this format of live and then done, I can't get this back. I can take it down, but I cannot change it. Actually works really well, because it's done and it's out there, and that's it. And I don't sit there and I don't really watch them back. I have a great conversation, follow up with the guests, and we talk, and the StreamYard does these really nice AI clips that I can release, and like these little shorts and stuff like that. But I don't spend any time in editing, and I think that really works for me. And you mentioned it earlier, when you were editing yourself, you would have cut maybe down to maybe like 5 minutes. And I think when it comes to editing ourselves, we're so critical
Yeah.
that it's not good. And I think if you gave it to someone else, it would be easier. And I know there are these YouTube channels, etc., where they started out themselves, but then they gave the editing away to someone else that they found to help. But for me, I'm quite grateful I don't get into the editing side. But
Yeah.
how does that work in your world? Are you saying, like, in proportion of the effort, would you say a lot is in the editing side for you?
No, not really. When I mention editing, I mostly refer to those moments where I stumble over my words or something where I don't sound as good in English as I would like to, you know. But I found a great trick which might be helpful to people who want to record their podcasts not live, but record them and edit them. Whenever I record solo episodes, I try to make a list of questions as if I'm talking to someone, as if someone is asking me those questions, because that makes it much more natural. I'm just responding to those questions, and it comes out in audio, it comes out very naturally. And I'm not addressing it as such. I'm not saying like, oh, great question, thank you for asking. I'm just pretending I'm answering the question someone else is asking me. So this is great because that way you can think of something someone else would ask and want to find out from you in your solo episode. And the second benefit is you sound natural while recording. This is something that helps me. But of course, if you're a native speaker, maybe if I were to record my podcast in Croatian, I wouldn't have the need to do that. But this way, I need to kind of hack my way into recording to reduce the editing time, so that I, again, have as frictionless of a process as possible. I hope that this makes sense to you.
Do you actually read the question out, or you just have it in front of you to read it and then you
I just
consider
have
it?
it in front of me. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I just have it in
Okay.
front of me. Or I state it as a fact. Like, I'm not asking it as a question. I'm just saying the sentence, like, as as if it's not a question, you know.
Okay, that's interesting. That's but that's the thing. There's so many tips and tricks, and I wouldn't have known to do that. But that's quite a powerful thing. It seems quite simplistic, but probably something that
Yeah,
we would overlook, right? And I
it's like
think
an interview.
what I yeah, and you're interviewing yourself, and it's because when I've recorded myself, I've put like bullet points, and then
Yep.
because you've got bullet points, you have to think about it and go. But if you've structured the question, you've already thought about it, and then yes, genius. I love it. It's
Yeah, it's an open-ended question, actually. Same as with
yeah,
you. You asked me a question and I'm answering it, and I'm not like thinking about how I will answer it. I can go on a few tangents and tell a few stories, but we have this open-ended question. So yeah, and you have a couple of them, and there you have your like 15-minute solo episode.
yeah. I'm now thinking back to when I've done a couple of these solo episodes. It does feel odd when you're not with someone else, and
Yeah,
I'm just thinking, and even when I kind of watched a bit of it back, and I was a bit like, oh, it feels like not false, but just not as natural as this sort of dialogue, this flow, and this interaction between someone. So, yeah, I'm gonna if I have to do a solo episode, I'm
yeah.
definitely doing that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can send over some questions. You can send some of us like the topic and what would you like to have answered. So you're just answering audience's questions. It's very simple.
Ah, nice, nice. I'm interested on timing. So, kind of well, technology. I think I don't know which would you. I mean, I'm conscious of time. I think we can easily go over the hour, and we'll probably have to cut it off an hour 10. But technology. I mean, we talked about microphones, and there's so many microphones out there, and you can spend a lot of money on technology. And again, that's sometimes an excuse why people don't start, and they go, oh, well, like, so if you go on Amazon, you can see like a million different microphones. And so I bought this one. I'll show it to the audience. This is the Rode, and I got recommended ages ago, and I think it's about 150 200 euros or something like that. I actually had it for a course that I was doing years ago, and so I already had it. But sometimes like you see these professional microphones and everything like that, and they cost a lot of money, especially like the arms and everything. And then you go, well, if you're just starting up, do you actually need that? And so, but we said audio is an important part. Do you have any preference? Obviously, you're ordering a new microphone. Do you have any advice or guidance on the right microphone, or a sort of price limit, just for someone that's getting started?
Well, again, I could spend 20 minutes answering this question, but I won't. So I will just quickly go through the process of me ordering this new microphone. So the old one I had required, without getting too technical, required a mixer, and it took up a lot of space on my desk. And whenever I would travel and want to record when I was traveling, I would have to carry too much equipment, and I wanted to again make things as easy for myself as possible. So I decided to sell that equipment, and buy something that is connectable by USB to my PC or laptop, so that I need to carry just one thing with me when I'm traveling. And I assume the one you have right now is connected to your PC directly, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that is what makes things easy. And when it comes to the quality of the sound, I'm no sound engineer, and most of us are not, and I will probably not notice a difference between five microphones that are in a similar price range. But when you mentioned what people should start with, I'm not the one to talk about that, because you never know what someone what situation they're in, because 200 euros for someone who is just starting out in their business and with their podcast might be a lot of money. So I have another trick here, which is we are lucky today that we have AI, and it can be used for good in this case. So, for example, today, as I mentioned, my microphone is my webcam, which is kind of embarrassing, but it's okay. So, whenever you need to polish up your audio, you can use AI, and more specifically, you can use AI that is built in with audio software, for example, or Descript. I personally use Riverside whenever I recorded interviews and whenever I edit solo episodes, because it offers so many like editing options and audio polishing options that with a click of a button you can sound um, more professional than you would if you had bought like a 200 euro microphone. If you can't afford it right now, there are so many options out there with software that are less expensive. So you can record multiple episodes, pay for 1 month of Riverside or Descript, edit them, and then publish them throughout a month or two. So that I think is a neat trick, because there are so many options today that we have no excuses. And why I'm buying this mic, I think I should have a good mic. I want to have it, and I want to have great quality audio without having to edit the sound afterward. So yeah, I hope that this answers your question.
Yeah, I so I've used Riverside. Someone interviewed me, a guy from LinkedIn, Adam Faulkner, and he used Riverside before, and I signed up for it, but I never actually used it. I don't know at the time something was going on, so I used StreamYard. But StreamYard, because it's live, there's no editing. I don't know if there is editing on the other side of it, but that's. I was just thinking because. Again, all these things are friction, right? From people starting out, they go, oh, I've got to get the equipment, I've got to get this, I've got to get that. And I think for me, people should do podcasts if it's, there are people that maybe shouldn't do podcasts. They're not naturally that great to talk or whatever. But if you want to try it, I would encourage anyone to try it, because oftentimes it's a nice way to express what you're thinking. And, we write a lot. And so I publish content pretty much daily. I've been a bit lax this week, but I think, like I said to you before, a lot of people now want to see the human element of it. And so people are considering it, but all these things, these are barriers or excuses that people are putting in their way. And if you don't want to commit, like you say, to a 200 euro microphone, then just try it, because you won't know all of these things when you start, and you'll just work out. Like I explained, if I'd have known 6 months ago, I would have done some of this other stuff differently. But if you can just start and then just get going and just take as much of that out, and if you've got software that does that for you, wow, that's like, that's pretty powerful. So yeah,
And
I'm
the
gonna
point is actually to share your message, to share your expertise. We can talk about technology and scheduling and all of the other things for days, but the point here is very simple: to either have meaningful conversations, to entertain people, to inform them. And the way you do that shouldn't be, you shouldn't put so emphasis on the technicalities, even though they can be important, but on the message you're sharing. And if you're able to share your message with the world and have someone be receptive of it, I think that's a success. That should be enough.
Yeah. That actually leads me on. I think the last topic we'll because we're going to that hour 10, but niching. So I think we actually maybe talked about this last time. So I've done loads of different business courses. I've tried to start my own businesses. That sounds grander than it is. I never really got them off the ground. One thing that came up time and time again was niching. And I think there's so many different schools of thought when it comes to niching, and people have said to me, yeah, you need to niche down, you need to be niche, speak to this type of people, whatever the niche is, men, women, children, or whatever it is, but get as specific as possible of who you're talking to. And I've always really struggled with that, because I couldn't I've gone so far to sort of say, oh, this is my, and like an avatar of the person that I'm speaking to, and it never worked. And I think for me the niching was going too quickly before I even knew what I was doing. And doing these live, I started them. I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. I know that I like talking to people and having conversation. I'm very interested in business, but as this has evolved, it's not really about business. It's about humans and contact and different ways, learning everything. And I still can't wrap my head around what my niche is. And I don't know if it's going to reveal itself in the future or it should just be general. But I know people that when they niche in their business, they do very well because they're very targeted at speaking to the right people, and they say the words in the language of their prospective clients, etc. And I know that people said, yeah, it works really well. Every time I think that sometimes during these conversations, I found, I've had a lot of conversations around leadership, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe leadership is my thing. And then I'm like, oh no, but there's something over here. And I was talking about perimenopause with a lady on one of them. That's cool. I'm very, and I'm like, that couldn't be too sort of different. I tried to tie it together. What's your thoughts about niching, and should you do it at the beginning? How does it work? What's your experience? Yeah, what's your take on the whole thing?
First, let me ask you, are we talking about podcasting here or business?
Let's stick with podcasting.
Yeah. In that case, I think both are valid roads to take. But in my case, since I had also a general podcast, a general business podcast before, I can say that it was a great project, and I met, same as you, so many people one to one, and I consider some of them my friends, and we still talk. But I'm shining a light on them, which is great, which was the point. And I didn't have as much, or I didn't give myself enough time to share my expertise. So I would only record interview episodes, and they were about general topics. So who would actually be attracted to that podcast? Not many people would recognize themselves in my podcast as a whole. So what I'm saying here is they never knew what to expect week in, week out. They could rely on me to publish episodes, but they would never know whether I would have another podcaster, a graphic designer, a leadership expert, a communication coach, So it was all over the place in a good way because I enjoyed it. My guests had a great time. And then later on, I realized if I wanted to get business through my podcast, if I wanted to educate my prospective clients, and if I wanted to attract, as they say, if I wanted to work on inbound marketing, then I need to launch my own niche podcast and have solo episodes. That's the formula I found that that works for so many other people, because I tend to tune in to podcasts that are super niche. And I know I can expect, for example, email marketing topics from them each week. And that is why I tune in. So whenever people tune into, for example, general podcasts, is because they like the host. And it takes a lot of time to create that kind of relationship with your audience with the general podcast. If your goal is to create a business or get leads or make money from your podcast. But if we're talking about something that is a hobby of yours, then by all means, having great conversations with people you meet, new people you meet through LinkedIn every week, that is completely fine. So it all depends on your goal.
Yeah, brilliant. I've now got to go and so I'm self-funding this for a year, but at some point I need to turn it into a paying business. So you've given me something to go away and think about. So yeah, okay, fantastic. I love that answer. But I think that's an amazing place to wrap up. I think there is so many more questions that I have for you, and I think it's such an interesting topic. And you know what you're talking about. And I think it's just it's lovely to actually interact with someone that actually understands, kind of what I've gone through, but can also give me tips. So it's been a bit of a selfish episode, really. I'm kind of just
that's why we do
taking
interviews. I understand completely. There's like satisfying our own curiosity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so hopefully other people got value, but I certainly have. It's been amazing. So you're going to record your own podcast, and that's starting in January. Am I going to keep you accountable for that? And
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Like I'm announcing it publicly and to my peers and friends, and now I'm like, oh, I need to do it in January. That's why I'm planning on recording like the first few episodes now, just to like get the ball rolling in January.
Yeah, it's I think when it comes to
something froze.
Oh really?
70
okay.
minutes in.
Can you hear me now, or
I don't know if it's something on my end, but
can you hear?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. That's the beauty of live. I think when it comes to recording stuff, when you say it in the new year, it's the same as New Year's resolutions. I think if you actually start the diet before Christmas and you go, I'm going to start afterwards. But if you can start it now, just do it. You'll learn, etc. But whatever way to motivate yourself to do something. Okay, for today, that's it. Where should people come and find you? I obviously found you through LinkedIn. Is that the best place? Do you have a website?
Yeah, let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's keep it simple. Yeah, you can type in my name, but I assume that the links will be everywhere. So
exactly. So, I mean, this goes out live, but I'll repost it and mention you so people can find you a lot easier. But for today, this was amazing. Like I said, very selfish of me to take all the value from you, and I know there's more, so maybe there'll be some messages going on later on. So,
for sure. I'm so happy with had this conversation, and it is true. You make your guests feel at ease. I forgot that we were live, which is
that's never the goal, but a lot of people have said the same thing to me. So I'm always pleased to hear it. It never gets old. So thank you very much for your time, Anja.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
See ya.